Hi, everybody. It's Gene Simmons, and you're not, and you're listening to the Potter Than Hell podcast with Steve, BC, BB, and Dylan. But you knew that, didn't you?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is your last stop on the crazy train of hard rock and heavy metal. So sit back, buckle in, and hang on. Here we go.
Hello, Potter Than Hellions. Welcome back to the Potter Than Hell podcast. This is Steve, your host for the evening, and I am joined, as always, by, once again,
BC
and
BB.
On the keys tonight will be
Dylan.
And we have our awesome returning guest host from the Great White North. Probably not quite white yet, but I'm sure it won't be very long. Mark Anthony K. from Canada. How are you, Mark?
Good, how you doing? Although we did get a little small sprinkle of snow the other day.
Oh, did you? Yeah, we did actually, too, the other morning. I had to get it off my vehicle. It was very depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Mark, you got a ton of stuff going on here. Bring us up to date on everything you got going.
Well, this Saturday, the pre-order for the Project Gemini album, Man of Science, comes to an end. So if anybody hasn't gotten on the pre-order yet, you have till tomorrow to do it. After that, you can still order it, but all the extras that were offered with the pre-order will no longer be available. After that, a couple of weeks from now, I should get the CDs proper sent to me, and I'll start sending them out, and then I'll be looking into doing the vinyl release of it as well in a couple of weeks as well. And other than that, I've been working on the podcast that I work on, the Yes one. We had a really great episode the other week where we interviewed Bob Seska, who did the artwork for the Magnification album and the Yes Symphonic album. He also told us some incredible, never before heard stories. I mean, he hasn't did an interview in 18 years, so we had a real exclusive with this guy.
That's cool.
So it was incredible doing that. And then the other day we did the Kiss FAQ podcast where we reviewed the new Ace Frehley album.
We're glad that new Project Gemini, Man of Science and Man of Dreams, correct?
Yes.
Is coming out. What is the actual release date on? Do you have an actual date, Mark?
I don't have an official date yet because once I submitted in on Monday all the final stuff for the starting of it, he will give me a date. He said it'll be 2 weeks, so I'm guessing maybe the first week of November.
Okay, cool, excellent. So once you get that date, you'll just automatically start sending them out.
Yeah, well, once I have the date, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the digital version up on Bandcamp so people can start getting it on there as well, and then once I receive them back, the CDs on that day, I'm going to kind of coordinate it with the release date. So if he tells me it's going to take 2 weeks to get everything done, that'll be the release date of the record.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I can't wait to get mine, and the ones you've released so far are great, and I can't wait to hear the bonus tracks that you did, the B-sides. They're going to be cool too. Great to have you back. It's awesome having you. We're glad that you actually had some time to spend with us. I know you have everything going on. Before we get going, a couple quick news things. Mark actually mentioned it. The new Ace Frehley album came out. Actually, today we're recording. It's October 19th. Mark, what did you think of it? What was your initial impression of it?
Well, I was never really a big Ace Frehley solo guy. I mean, I like his 78 record, but a lot of the other records that he's done are really kind of, I don't know, lukewarm for me. I thought Anomaly was okay, and Space Invader was, I didn't really connect to it too much. And his earlier records, like, Frehley's Comet and Second Sighting and that, I really wasn't into that stuff too much. But I have to honestly say that this album really surprised me. He did a lot of things good on this record. The guitars are nice and loud and in your face, and you'd be surprised. There's some really fantastic singing by Ace. Yes, I said singing.
Wow.
He actually sings some stuff like really well. I was very surprised. The instrumental at the end is the gem of the whole record. And he also did something that I've always kind of harped about on my podcast is bands who make too long of records. And I think he's subconsciously listened because it's only 9 songs and just under 40 minutes, this record. So it's a perfect length. It always makes you want to go back and listen to it again.
Great. BC, did you get to listen to any of it?
Yeah, I'm like, I think Mission to Mars, or I've read about there.
Okay. What'd you think?
Almost done that.
Initial
From what I can hear so far, not bad.
beat, nothing for BB?
I listened to something else that was released today, and I will bring that up soon.
Okay. Dylan?
I was surprised by how much I was enjoying it. I'll be the first to say that I was not looking forward to this album as much as the next guy, because I think Ace has a track record of disappointing more than doing really well nowadays, at least. But I liked a lot of the songs on here. You could definitely tell the running theme of this album is "Please let me back in the band, Paul. I'm doing really well right now." Because it's like. I wish I was rocking with my boys, and I want to go back using that as the cover song. Come on.
Pursuit of rock and roll.
Yeah, he wants back in the band, and it's a noble pursuit. But who knows?
Yeah, I got a chance to kind of listen to it today. I haven't been feeling well the last couple of days, and I put it on today. I listened to a little bit of it, but I was really very distracted. But I liked what I heard so far. Like I said, I didn't really get a chance to really delve into it. I'm familiar with Rockin' with the Boys and Bronx Boy, and Without You, I'm Nothing. The opening track, you could definitely tell that's one that he wrote with Gene, and the bass is real heavy in that. And I mentioned to Mark before we came on the air here, I think I heard Gene say that about 10 times when I did the Vault experience. So, that's a running thing. And I think Dylan's kind of right. There's maybe a theme bring me back. I'm doing good. I want to go back. I did hear that. I think it's terrible. I hate that song to begin with. Ace cannot save that song in my eyes. But like I said, I haven't really got a chance to really, check it out very good. But I will come back with a more in-depth review of it when I get a chance. And one other quick thing, Paul Stanley says that they're expanding the set list on the Into the Road tour to 25 songs. So we'll get, 10 more songs that we don't want to hear for the 1,000th time.
And that he won't sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get a Pearl Jam-esque set list that's 3 hours long and
not a chance.
Deep tracks,
not a
B-sides.
chance.
Yeah.
What's your guys' thoughts on that?
First I'm hearing it, so like you said, if it was going to be some deep cuts, then it'd be cool. But
Yeah.
It ain't going to be that.
It's not going to be. No way. You may get one, maybe two, maybe, but I don't think you're going to see any more than that. You're just going to get more. You off the top of my head, I can't even think of how many songs are on double platinum. You'll probably get double platinum in maybe 4 other songs.
And
See, the
problem
is that he's always said that that they're playing for the people who are coming to see Kiss for the first time. That's his whole thing, is that we're going to impress the people that are coming the first time to see us. And there's not that many of those people coming out anymore. I mean, unless they're playing nothing but fairs, and I don't think you're going to be doing that through the winter. So I think that it's going to be mainly people who are Kiss fans coming out to this. And really, when I heard they were playing 25 songs, I just can't see how they're going to do that, because he can barely sing 5 in a set list. So the extra 10 or whatever that they're going to add to the set list is probably have to be divided by Tommy and Peter. Sorry, what's his name?
Eric.
That other guy.
And
the other cat.
And Gene. So I think that they're going to be the ones mainly doing it, because there's no way in heck that he's going to be doing it.
No, and I think the Kiss Cruise coming up is going to be a big indicator of how this tour is going to go. In my mind, anyways. Hopefully, they at least give the Kiss Cruisers their money's worth and go deeper in because good 90% of the people that are on that boat are fans like me. Well, actually, even I'm a mild fan compared to some of the fans that are on this Kiss Cruise. And believe me, that is not a put down. There are some unbelievably great Kiss fans out there. They want to see the deeper tracks. They're sick of Shout It Out Loud and Rock and Roll Night. And when they didn't do Rock and Roll Night on the acoustic set last year, I was like, that was great. Although I am upset that they're doing an acoustic set again this year on the cruise. I wish they went back to the Electric Sail Away show.
I thought that was canceled.
What?
The acoustic set.
On the boat?
Yeah. I could have sworn I heard Julian say something about that. I could be wrong, but I thought they said
really?
that. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. Hopefully canceled in lieu of an electric set.
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
They're gonna let Ace and his new band do his whole solo album to get ready for the New Jersey Expo.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we get to see because Ace is supposed to play three sets on the boat, and hopefully that they will do the '78 solo album on the boat, so we'll get to see it before everyone else does. So, but I'm sure with those new guys in that band, they're gonna dig a little deeper in the Ace catalog. All right, we'll go quick around the table before we get into our topic today. What are we all listening to? Mark, what do you got going? We just discussed something before we came on air with you.
Yes, well, today I went into the record store to see about getting the Ace Frehley album on vinyl. The version that they had there, I already have on order from Amazon. Even though the one in the store is the silver vinyl, I ordered the purple vinyl. I'm not really one to get multiple colors of stuff, so I just didn't bother with that. But what I did get instead, and this hurt the wallet a lot more, was I got the David Bowie box set, the Loving the Alien one that has all the records between 83 and 89. A lot of interesting live album stuff that hasn't been released in a long time. All kinds of rare singles and different edits, and the one record from 87, Never Let Me Down, has been completely remixed and remastered, so it's like a totally new record. So a lot of interesting stuff to delve through. It's going to take me quite a while.
That's cool. It seems like they're doing a lot of cool things with his catalog, and we hope that other bands hint out there can take a cue from some of these bands that are doing a lot of cool shit. BB, how about you?
Like Mark, I was actually listening to a new album that came out today. Was the Unzipped from Whitesnake. I've been kind of waiting for this a couple months. I've been jonesing for a little acoustic music, and this really filled my empty heart because it was really, really good. I've been a big Whitesnake fan forever, and in this Unzipped, in the deluxe version, they give you I think it's a 13-song set from Starker's Live that they released in Tokyo back in 1997. I think it was released as like a bootleg, but now it's like a
John Sykes. That's great.
Oh, is it? I thought it was with Adrian Vandenberg.
Oh, there's one that he has out with. Oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. That's just a John Sykes thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think it's like 13 songs. It's really, really good.
Sorry, my medication's kicking in. BC, how about you?
Yeah, pretty much picked up the Ace today. Trying to listen to a little bit of that today, and some of our show tonight.
All right. Dylan.
Did you forget my name?
The guy over here. Hey, you.
I pretty went.
Hey, you.
Hey, Keys.
Hey, key guy.
Well, after our tussle with Slipknot last week, I
But their greatest hits.
I decided to just go into that realm of music. I've been listening to some System of a Down, specifically the album Toxicity. They're really good, really extreme, do some really interesting, different things than you're used to with metal, and I think that's why I like it. It's kind of new metal, you can consider it, but it's almost its own thing entirely. Serge Tankian's vocals are just like crazy, and the music goes along with it really well. So yeah, System of a Down.
All right, cool. And I actually went in the opposite direction of that Dylan did. I picked up the Steve Lukather book, Gospel According to Luke. For anyone that doesn't know, he is the guitar player in Toto. And I started listening to some of the old Toto albums from the 80s. And I'll tell you what, there's some good stuff there. Say what you want about them. They're good songs. There's a lot of hooks. The guitar playing is great. And his book, I'm listening to it on audio, which I think is even better because he narrates it, and it really sounds like you're just sitting at a table with this guy, having a beer, and he's telling you his life story. It is, if anyone out there has heard the Paul Stanley audio book, it's good, it's really good, but like I think the Steve Lukather one seems a little more conversational,
Yeah.
A little more, that he's right there with you. And I think it's great, and I've delved into some of the albums, and I've never honestly, besides the songs that I see them do live and the songs that you hear on the radio and stuff, there's a lot of good stuff, and there's some heavy friggin' tracks that these guys have that are really rocking tunes.
I'll tell you something. Steve Lukather has a lot of. I respect the guy quite a lot. I mean, besides the fact that he played in Toto, I mean, this guy was one of the biggest, session guitar players for the longest time. This guy, and when people like Eddie Van Halen start talking about him in a good light, saying that he's a big influence on him as a player, then you got to start taking attention here, because this is Eddie saying that too, right? And I mean, and Steve Lukather is the guy who also did the rhythm guitar tracks on "Beat It" for Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Right, so I mean, he's done a lot of stuff that has sold millions and millions of albums. So the guy's doing something right.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and he's played with and for everybody.
Yeah,
and he even tried out for Frank Zappa's band back in the day, and I guess read the book. I won't ruin it for you. All right, so cool. So stuff everyone's listening to. BC's listening to the new Ace, and our topic for tonight. BB's got a little Whitesnake Unzipped, Slipknot, and System of a Down for Dylan. The new David Bowie box set, Loving the Alien, that Mark's listening to, and some Toto for Steve.
a good movie to watch if you want to know more about Steve Lukather is Hired Gun.
Hired Gun, yeah.
He's featured pretty prominently in it. It's a great documentary.
That is very good. All right, so we have Mark on here for a purpose. We when we talk about anything from Canada, we always think of Mark automatically, and we're gonna do our first Rush themed episode today, and we were kind of going back and forth of how to go about doing this. So we figured we would do the first 4 albums, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it and see what everybody thinks of it. And actually, once we get going, everybody give us how you initially got into Rush, like when, and give us all that. Mark, what's your Rush background?
For me, Rush is my favorite band in the whole world. Like in the tree of bands that I like, Rush sits firmly at the very, very top with nobody else on the same level. Everybody else is under them. My introduction to Rush, I have to thank my oldest sister, Jane. She was a huge Rush fan, and she's she's like 6-7 years older than I am. She was into it, when she was in her teens, and I was pretty young when I first started listening to it, but I remember her listening to it in her house quite a lot, and I remember that one time she left her vinyl copy of Exit Stage Left on the turntable in her room, and I snuck in there and slapped on the headphones and listened to it, and, it might sound cheesy, but I had one of those moments where I turned it up pretty loud, and was totally whisked away. Like it felt like I was sitting in the Forum in Montreal where it was recorded, and listening to this album, and it totally changed everything for me. I got so into the band, and then I started getting interested in playing guitar, and then everything kind of branched from that listening.
All right, cool. BB, what's your Rush history? Do you have one?
I'm kind of late in the Rush music. Not many of the people I hung out with listened to Rush. It was more of the older kids, so it was kind of my friend's brother would listen to it, and I think the first album I probably remember listening to is Moving Pictures, but it was way after 1981. It was probably in the late 80s. And it was just never really. It was one of those bands that I kind of listened to and went backwards.
Other than the typical hits that you heard all the time, it's probably 1992 when I went to see him live with the co-worker at the time. I wrote a Bones tour, maybe.
Probably.
Somewhere around.
Yeah, that's the one.
And then pretty much after that, I delved a little bit more into it.
The first memory I have with Rush is actually the Russian Rio DVD. You were playing it at the fire station, and I saw the washing machines on the stage. And I'm like, that's weird that a band would have washing machines on stage while they're playing. And then R30 came out, and they had the rotisserie chicken.
And
then I finally got to, after I dove into their catalog head first, just listened to everything I could. We finally got to see them. Was it the Time Machine tour? Was the first one that I saw of Rush?
Yeah, when
was that or the Clockwork Angels
in
tour?
Hershey. Hershey? Yeah, that was when they were doing moving pictures in entirety, yeah.
And then we recently saw them on the R40 tour, and I'm so glad that I got to go, and Mom sat out that one, because that was the show to go to if you're a Rush fan, because they basically went backwards in time through their catalog, and the stage changed with all the the different eras. So they brought back the washing machine, and then they ended with like in like a high school
gymnasium
gym
with the amp on the
amps
chair.
on chairs and like a disco ball. It was crazy.
It was great. Yeah. My first the first time that I ever remember seeing anything of Rush was one of my buddies I used to hang out with in grade school, Mike Romanishin. So I would have been like probably eight or between 8 and 10, and his brother. We were Kiss fans. Everything, the whole world was about Kiss. But I remember his brother was like maybe 4 or 5 years older than us, and he had like I remember. From him, that's the first time I ever heard like Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo, Led Zeppelin, and he had. I remember seeing the All the World's a Stage album with the awesome like massive drum kit on there, and that's the first time that I've ever consciously remember seeing Rush. But the first time that I remember actively hearing them was actually a band playing in our high school. They played some kind of dance in our cafeteria. And they did Tom Sawyer, and they had this left-handed drummer. Remember Tom Carden, right? Yeah. This lefty drummer, and like he totally nailed the all the air drum parts that everybody does. Like totally nailed it. And that's probably the first I remember actually. Like I'm sure I knew the song before that, but like that's the thing that sticks out in my head. But
and then eventually,
yeah. But I'll tell you what, like I really have not gotten into Rush until probably there's the first spill of the evening. Excuse me. Probably when they did the R30 tour, BC and I went down to that.
Where was that?
Down at Montage.
You won tickets, didn't you?
We actually won tickets and meet and greet tickets too. We met Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson before the concert, which was very cool. But until then, I was a casual fan. But like once I saw them live, it was just like head first in, and we have not looked back since. And here we are doing a Rush episode on the podcast.
They're a very easy band to become obsessed with very quickly.
Yeah, and the early stuff I think is very, very interesting. Let's take the first album. It was released March 1st, 1974. Pretty much self-produced, and Terry Brown, that ended up being their longtime producer, helped them out because they were, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, they weren't satisfied with the studio they were working on, and then they went to another studio to finish the album, right?
Yeah, they were, they were doing the typical thing at that time where they were playing a lot of bars at the time, because keep in mind, before, the legal drinking age in Canada was 21. And afterwards, it got dropped to 19, which was perfect for them because they were only 19 years old when Rush started. And so they started playing a lot of different bars. Excuse me. And at night, after they would be done doing their gigs, they would go and pack up their stuff and head on over to a recording studio. And through the rest of the night, they would go and work on this self-titled album. And it was pretty much just them producing it, so to speak, and it was going okay, but they weren't very happy with the results, so they brought it over to Toronto Sounds Interchange, I think it was the name of the studio, and they had Terry Brown there, and he ended up remixing a few songs, and actually I think they recorded a couple of new songs and ditched a song, because I think they still were pondering on doing a Not Fade Away, which is I think a Buddy Holly cover.
Right.
And they dumped that and recorded another song in replacement of it. And they were much happier with the finished results once Terry Brown got his hands on it.
Yeah, they kept Take a Friend and In the Mood from the first sessions, and all the other ones they recorded new at the new studio. And song-wise, what do you guys think of the album overall, BB?
It was really funny because the first song when you listen to this, Finding My Way, it was before I read any reviews or anything. I'm like, boy, that sounds exactly like it's Led Zeppelin-ish. So come to find out, they're somewhat influenced and blah blah blah. Finding My Way is a really good song. I really like Need Some Love. That was a really really good song, and. Another Led Zeppelin song that I found on there was 5. What Are You Doing? And you can tell where their roots are, definitely. But I think I read somewhere like Cream is also an influence, but I didn't really get that. I got more of the Led Zeppelin version of it.
Yeah, I mean, first put this on. I mean, I like the groove, the feel of his vocals. I mean, his voice. You know, it's getting lead, but it has, I don't know. But the groove in the vocals really caught my ear. First off, Finding My Way, Need Some Love, What You're Doing, In the Mood, more cowbell. And before and after, I love the solo part in the second half, and then of course Working Man's classic Rush.
Right.
But overall, I was very surprised. I liked it.
Mark.
Well, I've always liked it, but the funny thing is, I was never really a big Zeppelin fan. Now, for me, whenever people would say that it sounds just like Zeppelin, I would always kind of look at them like, well, I don't know, because I don't listen to Zeppelin, which people would usually say like, what? You don't listen to Led Zeppelin? And I'm like, no, I never clicked in with them until much later. But Finding My Way is definitely a very Led Zeppelin-ish kind of song. I find that as it gets on more to the end of the record, the Led Zeppelin influence kind of starts disappearing a bit. Like, especially when you hear like the beginning of like Before and After, and where it's kind of a little bit more melodic and played out, and even songs like Here Again is very bluesy. It is kind of Zeppelin influenced, but I find it's just more bluesy influenced. And Working Man, I think, is definitely like Rush, more Rush-like than Zeppelin-like. And again, I have to agree, like, with what I think was BC said, that What You're Doing is kind of something that kind of shows a little bit more Rush-like style in it. So they were never shy about admitting their influences, and this first record has the influences all over it.
Yeah, I've always loved this record. Working Man was the first Rush song I fell in love with. But for some reason, it was only on this listen that Here Again really stuck out to me. Like, I love this song. It's almost, like, it is very bluesy, like you said, Mark. And it almost reminds me of, like, almost like a cousin song to Since I've Been Loving You from Led Zeppelin, which I also love really just a ton. But, like, it's such a different song to hear the band like Rush to be doing. You don't really think blues when you think of Rush, but you could definitely see where the band was going to be going with Working Man, where they were changing around some of the different parts of the song and doing a little changes, getting a little progressive in terms of how they were making the song different from like the verse, and then going into this weird extended solo towards the end, and then changing it back up. So it's cool to see the seedlings of what would become like the prog, the space crazy Rush become.
I like the album. I think, and I'll just point out now that the drummer on this album is John Rutsey, and it was the only album that he was on with these guys. And the drumming is great. And for an album that was pretty much self-produced in the the early '70s, it sounds really good. It sounds real good. And Dylan's right. There are little seedlings there of what the band would become. And I'm of the mind that Mark is too. I'm not a huge Zeppelin guy. I kind of, if someone says, "Oh, they sound like Zeppelin," I'm kind of like, "Oh, well, okay." But I think there's some great playing on here. Finding My Way is cool. Need Some Love. It's got great drums on it. I love the heaviness that's under the solo on that song. It's really good. And actually, that Need Some Love. That's like their first song that has a pretty much a time change in the song, and I think that's kind of like a little foreshadowing there of what goes on. Take a Friend is good. The guitar solo is really good. The ending is kind of weird. Here Again, very bluesy song. I think Mark and BC said that, and the solo in it is phenomenal at the end.
It's a long one, yeah.
It's fantastic. What You're Doing is good. In the Mood, it's like after listening to all the Rush that you know from the years, it kind of sounds weird to go back and hear Geddy Lee singing, yeah, baby, hey, baby. It's so weird to hear that now. When you go back and listen.
In the Mood, when it started, it reminded me like something Kiss-ish, like Watching You or something. Like,
well, they did eventually go on tour with Kiss.
Yeah.
Right when I hear that, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Before and After, it's got it's got a little mellow intro. it's got a little funk element to it. I think it's got a little funk element to it, and another cool time change. The solo is good, but I think BB said, like Working Man, that's the song. That's, I think, the crown jewel of the album, and it's considered one of the best Rush songs, and that I consider one of the best songs for a reason. It's fantastic. It wasn't getting played in Canada. A DJ in Cleveland picked it up and started playing it, and people thought it wasn't a Led Zeppelin song. And I cannot think of the DJ's name.
Donna Helper.
There you go. Because she's still alive, and she was on the Beyond the Lighted Stage movie. I just watched it the other day, and people went nuts for that song, and it really got them off the ground in the United States. And it seems like the Midwest was the geographic area that embraced bands like Rush, like Kiss, like Ted Nugent, those bands of the early '70s. I think that the heartland of the United States is the geographic area that really embraced these bands. And Rush and Kiss, they've run parallel quite a bit throughout their careers. Their album came out like 3 weeks after Kiss's first album, and their first couple albums kind of run parallel and as they get put out. But I think it's great. I think it's a great first album. It's a great sounding album for a debut, that's for sure, and especially for a self-produced one. And then they tour the hell. They don't even really tour that, right? They replace John Rutsey right after the album comes out.
Well, here's the thing. A couple of things. In the Mood and Working Man were really the hits off the record, if you can call it that. But In the Mood was played for years and years and years in their set, well into the 80s. So that was one of their big songs, believe it or not, off of that record. Another thing that's important to make note of is that on July 29th, 1974, which is Geddy Lee's 21st birthday, was when Neil Peart actually came in and replaced John Rutsey. Now, they had played some dates with John Rutsey when this album came out, but it became very clear early on that because of his diabetes, and he wasn't apparently keeping himself in very good health because of it, they needed to make a replacement quick. And there's a great story about how when Neil came and tried out, they looked at him, they thought he was a real dork.
Yeah.
And they thought that he had this really ridiculous small drum set, because he looked giant on it. He had these little small 18-inch bass drums, and they were in shock though when he started playing these drums. They were like, wow, this guy's incredible. And when they got their American record deal with the Mercury Records, they got a huge record advance given to them, and they went to Long and McQuaid, which is a huge record store here in Canada, music store, here in Canada. They apparently just locked the doors for them and let them go in and just go crazy shopping, buying new gear for their tour. And that's when, they got their Les Pauls and their Marshall stacks, and Neil Peart got this huge silver drum set like you see on the cover of All the World's a Stage. And, it kind of snowballed from there. That date was very important. And when they brought Neil in to the band, everything changed.
All right, cool. Mark, that's why I wanted you on this episode. You got all the. I know you have you could articulate their history better than I can only speak for myself. Than I definitely could. And then they do some touring for that. They jump back in the studio, and that was back in the day too. When these record companies, they wanted album after album after album. They kept these guys on the road for a little bit, and then they give them 2 or 3 weeks or something to record an album, and then they're right back out on the road.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting that they started talking about how little time they had in terms of making records, right? I mean, the first record, it was kind of like that even back then, how when you say that, a band has its whole life to make its first record and 2 weeks to make its second.
Right.
But it was kind of the same way with this too, because they were making their first record for a long time. Like I said, it was after a lot of their late night gigs. It wasn't done in 1 or 2 sittings. They went in and had to do it over a period of time to get it done. But once they became a signed act and had to go and start touring, that became a full-time thing. And then they were just given a budget amount of money to go in, and they went into the studio and just went in and did the record, right?
Yeah, I mean, they recorded Fly By Night. They recorded that September to December 1974. So, and actually, even the thing that gets me is the turnaround for albums from when these bands are finished recording to when the album's actually released. I got done recording in December. In the middle of February, this album's out. Nowadays, and I'm sure you can attest, Mark, you probably had your album done, but you have the technology, and they go over and over. But now back then they were just banging these albums out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was very much the way things were back then. I mean, it was very much a situation where the touring was feeding the machine in terms of funds for everything else, because they were given an amount of money to make a record. They had to recoup it, right, as best they could, and then they go on and make another record after they tour again. So I mean, these bands were kind of handcuffed to record labels for a while, because a lot of the times they never were able to recoup all the money spent on the prior record, right? So they were always having to go out and play. I mean, another thing that's interesting too is these guys were fairly young, right, when they went out and started touring. And I believe during the first tour, it might have been the first tour, maybe the second one, but I mean, Alex Lifeson got married to his longtime girlfriend, and right after the wedding, the next day, instead of going on a honeymoon, he had to do a gig in Thunder Bay, Ontario. So this was a very much a commitment to these guys,
Yeah, because Alex dropped out of school, right? Or did he finish school? I don't
think he finished. I think he dropped out. Yeah, there's a really interesting documentary online with Alex Lifeson. I'll talk to you guys about it later, but it's a really interesting one where they have him when he's like 16 years old, talking about playing music, and they show him playing really early on, and talking to his father, saying that how he doesn't care about finishing school, and his parents are all freaked out by it. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think there were some parts of that.
There's a couple parts of that Beyond the Light of Stage. Yeah, it shows them sitting at like a dinner table, and they're talking, and his parents are like, "Well, can't you just like finish high school and don't worry about college or something like that?" But yeah, I mean, these guys were committed, and then they get in, they quickly bang out Fly By Night, and that comes out on February 15th of 1975. And it's funny too, Mark, because when we talked earlier about the Ace Frehley album, you said that Ace was maybe subconsciously listening that the shorter albums, and like these albums are pretty much short albums too. The first album was like 39 minutes, and this one's only like 37 minutes and change. So they were getting in there, banging out these songs and putting them out, and like they do leave you wanting more. Like, and some of these albums these days, there's 14, 15 songs on them, and you're like, by the time you get like to the 10th song, you're kind of like, no matter how good it is, you're still like, this is a long time to sit for a whole album that is like an hour and 10 minutes long. That's a long time to just sit, especially with the way life goes quickly now, that there's always someone's got like 8,000 things going on. But back then they were just banging them out. And go ahead, Dylan.
And I think the length is also like they're a slave to the medium.
Right.
Like you can't really have like giant albums unless you press like double vinyl. You can't really go beyond
True.
a certain time. So I think
that's definitely true. But I mean, I think though that one thing that the vinyl record has proven is that it is the perfect length, because once CD came in and they started being able to make records that were like 74 minutes long, i.e. Typo Negative and bands like that who made huge long albums, I never really liked that. I mean, I found that I couldn't get past 60 minutes without going, okay, this is way too long. And I think that the vinyl record has proven that time period, like 40 minutes, is ideal.
I couldn't agree more. They come out of the gate with Anthem. So here's the first song that you get to hear Neil Peart on drums, which is an absolutely rocker to start the album out. BB, give us your fly-by-nightage here.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. Anthem, to open up this album, is amazing. I love the crazy middle guitar solo. I don't know what Alex is doing there, but it's mind blowing. The Snow Dog song, I think that song really grabbed me with that. I'm not sure what part it is, but the crazy drum solo that
yes,
it just like, holy cow! And you're talking back 1975, and this guy's doing this way back then. And like now you know why he's on top of everybody's drum list as like a drum god. I really like Making Memories. The acoustic guitar in it, and then it goes to maybe, I don't know if it's like a steel string guitar or a slide guitar, but it really fits. It's a really, really cool song. The only thing I somewhat really I didn't care for, the last two songs just seemed like they were a little bit slower. Like to open up with a great, heavier anthem song and then to end with something a little bit slower. I thought maybe they could have somewhat hid that somewhere else, but other than that, this is a fantastic album, and it really showcases Neil's drumming ability.
I was going to say, it's interesting that you brought that up, because the second last song, which is Rivendell, which is just a classical guitar bit with just a little bit of electric guitar swells here and there and Geddy Lee singing, that song is extremely important to them back at that time, because it is totally influenced by the whole Lord of the Rings thing, right? And that was Neil Peart's big thing then. When he was writing lyrics and he became a lyricist, he was very much influenced by that whole Tolkien thing, and that shows in that song right there. And in the end is a very much, the kind of 70s kind of rocker. Starts out really calmly and then gets rocking and ends, with a kind of slowed down bit. And for all you vinyl and audiophile fanatics, if you get an early pressing of Fly By Night on vinyl, that song in the end, if you get the early pressing of it, has a locked groove where the chimes in it. And I think that's actually, I think it's actually for Bytorn the Snow Dog, where at the end where there's like these chimes ringing at the end, and if you leave the needle down, it'll just continuously keep ringing those chimes until you lift the needle.
Oh yeah?
Oh wow, yeah. That's cool.
Oh, that's really good. I never heard that before. Cool. Or BC, what do you got for Fly By Night?
Again, it starts off with the anthem, which I just love the bass in it. And Beneath, Between, and Behind, to me, as soon as that came on, I said Zeppelin. And then after that, Fly By Night, of course, Making Memories, Rivendell, not bad for acoustic. And in the end, I like the second half of it. Starts off kind of slow, but the second half
Beefs it up.
Beefed it up a little bit. But overall, I mean, I'm really liking it so far. The first 2 albums.
Mark.
I'll go on record to say that this is my favorite Rush record. Out of all the records that Rush have released, Fly By Night is my favorite album. There's something about this record that's magical to me. I find that because of Neil's involvement in this, it's like a band that caught fire early in their career, and I found that they were very much trying to prove a point that these guys were here to stay and that they were meaning business, because I think like Neil behind that kit showed everybody, that this band was something to watch out for. And at least in the Canadian music industry, they believed it, because they actually got a Best New Band Juno Award here in Canada for Fly By Night, which was their first Juno Award that they ever won. And I just love this album. To me, if you want to hear a sound of a band that's young, on fire, hungry for success, you put this album on.
I agree. I really love this album. I think side 1 is just like perfect from note 1 to the end chimes of Bytor. Bytor the Snow Dog is top 3 Rush song for me. I absolutely love that song. It has everything you could want in a Rush song. There's the slow, there's like the kind of moody part in the middle. There's just an amazing drum blast. I love right before that moody part in the middle where they do the do-dan-dan-do-dan-dan-do-dan, and like they just like, gradually cut it down and then till it's like just the one note, and then they just do a nice little sound out, as I like to call it. Anthem, you get our first hint at Neil's obsession with Ayn Rand, based off the novella by the objectivism czar, I'll call her. But like Best I Can is awesome. Beneath, Between, and Behind is just such a unique chorus, I would say, just the way that it's done. I would say side 2 is a little weak as compared to side 1. I mean, Fly By Night's a great opener because it's the title track, and it's probably the song I would say a person on the street would know from Rush. But like, Making Memories, Rivendell, in the end, they're kind of a little more low-key as compared to the pretty bombastic side 1. But it's still an amazing album, and you can definitely see, okay, now we're starting to get out there. We're starting to branch out into our own band. We're starting to be unique and different and not like anybody else. And like songs like By-Tor and Anthem show that path they're taking through, the Rivendell, if you will, to go see the elves.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to make note too that Best I Can is a leftover song from the early days, even like early as the first record. If you watch the Behind the Lighted Stage DVD, there's a scene of them playing at the Laura Secord High School, and they were playing that already then with John Rutsey. So that song is a leftover, but if you listen to their version from there and then listen to what Neil did with it, it's just completely night and day on drums. It's just totally different. And I mean, like songs like, Making Memories, those were put on there mainly because they were writing these songs in cars. I remember reading a story that, they would be touring in this car, and then the other roadie would drive a station wagon pulling a U-Haul with their gear, and they would be just in the back of these cars with one or two acoustic guitars and writing. And that's how they wrote a lot of this record, and they kept it more acoustic for that song, for example.
Oh, cool. I really enjoy Fly By Night. I thought it was, and I was never like every time like the song Fly By Night would come on, I'm always like, this song again. It was just like, I don't know. It bothered me. I don't know if it's just the poppiness of it, but it's grown on me. But the album itself, like it starts off with Anthem, which it's an amazing song. I think it's great. And it takes off and you get that whoa, and I just love how it's got that delay, that down out, and you get that echo on it. And I just love how in this song, when the solo starts, it's just bass, drums, and guitar. There's no overdubbed background rhythm guitar. It's just these three guys just rocking the shit out of this song. It's by far probably my favorite song on this album. It just rocks. Best I Can, you could definitely tell that Neil Peart did not write the lyrics on this one, and like you said, it was a holdover from the other ones. But it's not too bad. It's not bad, and I really like Beneath, Between, and Behind. I think it's great. Yeah. The lyrics are fantastic in it. It's got a great riff in it. By-Tor, like that's like their first epic song, I would say. Definitely another glimmer of what was to come.
And something I like about By-Tor is that you can picture the battle happening during like the instrumental part where like they have the guitars like imitating the sounds of the two combatants, and it's almost like a prelude to 2112 where they're making these different sounds to represent different characters or different scenarios. And I think it's an interesting way to use the music is to paint that picture in your head. Sorry, I didn't.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I definitely love By-Tor. I think it's a great song. It's got a lot of cool riffs in it. Alex's guitar playing on this album is just like top notch. It's great. It's got a great tone. Fly By Night's the poppiest one. It's okay. It's growing on me. Making Memories, and like I said before, I'm not a big Zeppelin guy, but if you listen to that guitar, the acoustic guitar in that, it definitely reminds me of Gallows Pole. Just the one acoustic guitar part where it's just the acoustic playing definitely reminds me of Gallows Pole. It's got a decent solo in it. It's got a good groove in it. The outro solo is really good. Rivendell, not a fan of that. It's a little too mellow for me. In the end, like BC said, a mellow start. The guitar sound is great in it. I like the chorus. And I'm of the mind of BC. I think the last two, I think it was BC that said it, like the last two songs kind of bring the album down a little bit for me, but the greatness of Anthem and Beneath, Between, Behind, and By-Tor, I think that they more than make up for the what I feel are little shortcomings on the last couple songs.
I do have to give the points though, because like Rivendell is not like this war-torn place in Lord of the Rings. It's a
peaceful place.
Kind of like just a place to get your bearings, to relax, and so they really do capture the spirit of it, I think, in the song. So I will give the points for that.
I agree. I don't know if anyone out there has read all these books. I mean, I have, years ago, and the movies are out there, but seriously, people, if you like the movies, read the books. They're way better.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is too, like By-Tor and the Snow Dog, for example, shows a lot of influence from their progressive roots, like especially Genesis, because if you take a look at a song like Supper's Ready, which is a long 20-minute song that has all these different sections. Well, this is not a 20-minute song, but they kind of have the same idea of the sections, because if you take a look at Bytor and the Snow Dog, it's broken into 4 sections. Like the first part is called at the Tobes of Hades. The second part is Across the Styx. Part 3 is actually broken into 4 separate parts. Part 3 is called Of the Battle. That's where they kind of break it down into that quiet section. And there's 4 separate sections there, which is the Challenge and Defiance. Then there's the 7-4 Warfuror. And then you have the Aftermath. And then at the end, when they come back with the drums kick back in, that's called the Hymn of Triumph. And then the ending of the song is actually just called Epilogue. So you can very much see a connection to Genesis and the way they wrote music just in that song.
Yeah, absolutely. They wear their influences on their sleeve, especially in the early records.
Yeah, I definitely just like, as we're going for the first and second albums, just the progression of the band, how much they mature from one album to the other. And, you know, whether it be playing or arrangement or lyrically, I think they just keep stepping up their game every album. I mean, we're only 2 albums in, don't get me wrong, but I think they're really, really good, 2 good starting albums. So what we will do now is we got Rush, self-titled, out of the way, and Fly By Night, and that takes us right into our hidden gem. Okay, we're going to start the hidden gems out this week with Dylan.
Okay. My hidden gem is actually a song that was unreleased on a studio track from Rush, but they did play it live back in '74. It's called Garden Road. It's a really cool, it has a cool riff to it. It's very much from like the first album era Rush. Like it's that kind of feel to it. It's like just a straightforward rockin' song. Just a cool, almost Roadhouse Blues-ish in terms of feel, but it has a little more oomph to it and a little more get up and go in its riff. But it's a really cool Rush song that I discovered watching Beyond the Lighted Stage, which is a great documentary also that I would recommend. So Garden Road from Rush.
All right, cool. BC, how about you?
I'm going to go back to the good old days. Anyways.
Aren't we already there?
Today's run sucks.
No, I meant about when we were covering Rush.
Oh, no.
What do you got?
This is the thing, Jeff. I'm going to go back to the days of Philadelphia music scene when you heard of the Cinderellas, you heard of Britney Foxes, but a band that was lost in that was a band, Tangier, which songwriter, guitarist formed, Doug Gordon formed this band back in '89.
I love those outlets. The Tangier outlets.
Yeah, but they released their first album, 4 Winds, and then they had a few lineup changes, brought in a new vocalist for their second album. Stranded is my hidden gem for Tangier. Stranded, it's more soulful and heavier album from Philadelphia.
Stranded is the album, right?
Stranded is the album, yes. 1991.
I remember those guys.
I thought they played
They played at Rocky Glen.
the Neog Park.
They played
Yes,
Mayock?
yes.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah, they used to do, yeah.
They used to do like a music thing, like all kind of bands.
Because Dirty Looks even played there, I want to say,
I don't know.
back in the day.
It's so blurry. But
Cool, those guys are really good. Definitely check those guys out. Mark, what do you got?
Well, you know, with me and my love of progressive rock and progressive metal and so on and so forth, I'm not going to disappoint. Of course, that my hidden gem will revolve around that. And as you might have guessed, this pick here is going to be of the progressive rock nature. And I'm surprised actually I had time to go to the record store to buy this. I've been so swamped with this Project Gemini stuff. But I had to go out and get this record because I'd heard good things about it. And I was not disappointed when I picked this up. This is from a band called The Pineapple Thief. And the album is called Dissolution. D-I-S, like D-I Solution. And it's a really, really fantastic album. I mean, if you like progressive rock, and but it's melodic and it still has like some memorable singing in it, this is the record for you. And I mean, it also has Gavin Harrison on drums, who's now playing with King Crimson. So I mean, you have an absolutely fantastic drummer on this too. So if you like a prog album with really great drumming on it, this is the album for you.
So it's Pineapple Thief?
Yeah,
Dissolution.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm up for some stuff like that. I'll have to check them out. All right, BB, what do you got?
All right. Well, since I was listening to some live stuff, and since we're talking about the boys up in Canada, let's keep the live Canada ball rolling. Let's go with the Killer Dwarfs. Live,
All right.
no guff. It was released this year, April 13th. And if you guys have not heard the Killer Dwarfs, they are one of those 80s bands that just never got enough love. And just a really, really great sounding album. Really, the sound on it, produced-wise, is amazing. A couple of the songs that are on there that are really, really good. Keep the Spirit Alive, Dirty Weapons, Tell Me Please, Heavy Metal Breakdown. It's just a really, really good melodic 80s guitar riffing album. Great live album released this year. So
Pirates.
definitely something to check out if you guys are into live music.
Those guys are great. Mark, have you ever seen those guys up there?
Oh yeah, I saw them lots of times, and they put on an incredible
I
show.
can imagine.
I mean, Russ Dwarf, his whole gimmick was he would ride around on a tricycle
Yep.
midway through the set, right? And it was hilarious just seeing them. I mean, the oddest show I've ever seen with them was the Killer Dwarves opened for Ronnie James Dio on the Lock Up the Wolves tour here in Toronto. But the band after Killer Dwarves was Yngwie Malmsteen, who was touring for the Eclipse record at that time. So it was Killer Dwarves, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Dio. So what an oddball lineup that was.
That was different.
That is really weird.
Yeah.
Ingve's 40-minute set of... Cool, excellent. Killer Dwarfs, they're great. We saw them at M3 a couple years ago. They're another band I didn't think that we were ever going to get to see live. He did do the tricycle, and he actually threw it out in the crowd, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know if he probably didn't get it back, but, you know, that would have just sucked if he got it, carrying fucking tricycle around all day. Because they played early in the day.
Yeah. I need to go to the car. You can't
But
afford
they
it.
were
That's
really
why
good
you
live.
ride the tricycle
Yeah.
around. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Great pick, though. Good pick. Good job, BB.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pick this week is going to be one of the bands that I'm going to be seeing on Kiss Cruise 8 in
Is it Kiss?
like 2 weeks. He's a solo artist. His name is Ace Frehley. He's got a new band. And,
I don't know him.
He's got a great new album out. No. This is one of the bands that they had a voting on. That so many bands got picked and they had to narrow it down. And this band is Beth Blade and the Beautiful Disasters. The album's called Bad Habit. Great, straightforward hard rock band. Beth Blade, her vocals are great. There's great hooks in the songs. Songs like Down and Dirty, Poster Girl for Pain. This Bitch Bites is really cool. Kind of reminds you a little bit of maybe Hailstorm-esque, but like heavier. But really good, straightforward hard rock band, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this band on the Kiss Cruise. So
Beth Blade.
Beth Blade and the Beautiful Disasters is the name of the full name of the band. The album is Bad Habit.
I wonder if they're 311 fans.
I
Because they're
Don't know the reference.
Their main song is "Beautiful Disaster."
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. So check out our gyms, you guys. We put them out there for a reason. Maybe spark a little interest from you guys out there to check out something newer, check out something different that you haven't checked out. From Mark, we have the Pineapple Thief, I think, which is probably the most interesting one that we will check out tonight. I will definitely check them out, Mark. The Pineapple Thief Dissolution. Dylan's Guard Road song is an old Rush song. Can you find that out there? Is that
It's
maybe on YouTube video or something?
There was a YouTube video. Apparently, there was a vinyl pressing of an old show that they did, and that was on there.
Oh, okay, cool. Killer Dwarfs Live, No Guff from BB, great pick. Tangier, Stranded album from BC. That was a good band. That was another band that got lost in the shuffle as all the grunge shit came in, and they were just another band that was out at the wrong time. So,
But I mean, they worked out well. They have an outlet.
they have outlets,
now,
yeah.
so
Yeah, you can go shopping. You can go to the Nike store
their
there.
legacy lives on.
Or, if you don't want to go to Nike, they have Under Armour too. All right, let's get back into Rush. We just got done with Fly By Night. They go back into the studio for Caress of Steel, and apparently this one, according to Geddy Lee, was they were smoking a lot of weed when they did this one. And this one was recorded July and August of 1975. And and it came out quick too. There's another album too. It didn't come out until like September 24th, which is like a month later after they recorded it. It's just crazy how these guys were cranking out albums here. You could definitely see their journey to prog rock, I think, is in full swing on this album. I think they really hit their stride, prog wise. Like I said, they were pretty high when they were recording it, and there's parts where you could definitely tell there might have been a little token going on there. But Mark, kick us off for this one.
Well, this is a very, very interesting record, I find. This is sort of the black sheep of the Rush catalog, especially for the guys. They even acknowledge that themselves, that they always refer to this album as half-baked, quote-unquote. But it's probably one of the more better progressive metal albums of the time, especially back at that time. And the funny thing is, because they kind of rolled the dice a bit and decided to go like fully progressive on this, because if you take a good look at this track listing, you would be thinking that you're looking at a Yes album and not a Rush album, because you have like Bastille Day opens it, I Think I'm Going Bald, Lakeside Park, which are three, normal length songs, but then you close off side one with The Necromancer, which is like 12 minutes long, and then side two is just one song, which is The Fountain of Lamneth, which is like 20 minutes long. So this is them kind of saying, you know what, we're a progressive band, that's what we want to be known as, and we're diving head first in. Now the only problem is that at this point of their career, their fans probably weren't ready for it. I think it was a little too early in their career for it, because this album didn't do very well at all. They actually named their tour the Down the Tubes tour, because they went from playing small and medium halls to going back to some large clubs and small theaters on this tour. Paul Stanley was quoted as saying that he didn't understand this album at all when Geddy Lee played it for him in his car. He said he looked at him and said, "I don't understand what you're trying to play here." So already there was some sign that this record might be a little too brainy for the audience that they had at that time. But I personally like it. I understand what they're trying to do. Me being, a guy who loves his prog music like King Crimson and, Genesis, and yes, to me this would have been, I would have understood it and commuted it right away, right? But you got to understand the audience that they had at that point. The first Rush album, you had a lot of Zeppelin kind of fans who just liked, the blue-collar hard rock. And Fly By Night had that as well, but lightly put in the prog. Like it was just Bytor and the Snow Dog was the really long song on there. So they kind of just introduced it very mildly on that. This record is like, you got given the whole dose of it in one shot. So I can kind of understand why it probably didn't go over as well as it should have. And it's also interesting to make note that the album cover on here was supposed to be like a gray tinge, like Caressive Steel. It ended up being this odd bronze color. And this is also the first album cover done by Hugh Syme, who ended up being their longtime album cover designer, and ended up doing many other bands from there. Everybody from Megadeth to Dream Theater to who knows who, like lots of other albums Hugh Syme has done album stuff for. But for me, I like this record. I think side 2 is really outstanding. But there are times when I have to admit where I'll listen to this and I'm just not in the mood for it.
Cool. BB.
Uh-oh.
No, I just don't know how to word this. The side one, I thought it was kind of funny. Maybe if Geddy actually played it for Ace or Peter, and they were high, maybe they would get it instead of Paul. Probably maybe Paul wasn't high at the time. Maybe that's why he didn't understand it.
My theory is that Paul just said that he doesn't get it, but was actually filing it away
for the elder.
He could do the elder. That's my theory.
He was taking notes.
Bastille Day, I thought that was a really cool bass line opening. I thought it was a really good song. I think I'm Going Bald. It's kind of funny. It's a funny tune. Like who would kind of make a song like that? Lakeside Park, I really enjoyed it, and I went back and found out that it was Neil Peart's first job, or or a park that he used to hang out at when he was young, and you can definitely tell it through the lyrics. And then
It's where he used to live in St. Catharines. There was a place there called Lakeside Park.
oh, okay, and that's what it was. That's what I remember. Then the next song, you get the spoken word. See, seems like we're always throwing the spoken word in episodes anymore.
The next two.
We get the spoken word in this next song, and then I get to side two, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me. I can't understand what. Maybe I'm totally missing what they're trying to sell here, but the storyline or something. It's just the whole side, because I know it's on 2112. There's the one song that's on the whole side.
Spoilers.
It's I get I don't know. I don't know if I get bored or I get lost. I don't know if maybe I just look at it and it's like, oh, you still have 9 minutes left and you're 10 minutes in. And I just get, I don't know. It's probably
What
just
is it
me.
that you don't? What is it that you don't understand? Is it the story of it?
It has to be the story. Because I
It's
can't.
just basically one man's quest to look for the fountain of youth, and he realizes, that once he actually reaches the fountain, that it was a perilous journey and that he just died anyways, pretty much.
Oh.
So don't waste your time looking for it.
Live
Pretty
your
much.
life. Yeah, live your life.
Enjoy the journey.
Exactly.
PC.
I really like this album. Surprisingly, the first track, the bass and drums to me really brought it up. And I think I'm going bald. Of course, I just love the guitar in it, and it's funny. They're kind of like laughing, almost doing it. I think I'm going bald. Lakeside Park, not too bad. And then
Yeah.
help me out here.
The Necromancer.
Necromancer.
I love the guitar solo, and then the jam in the middle, and then the side two. I like it. BB. I never really looked too much into the lyrics or the stories of things at first, but like musically and that drum solo
Oh yeah.
part in, I guess.
The Natics and Narpets.
really-
Yeah.
I did add
The
the
solo.
Narpods.
The solo is really good.
I just really like those last two.
I think Bastille Day is one of the best opening songs for Rush. I could just picture, ladies and gentlemen from Toronto, Canada, Rush. And I'm like, yes, this is such a good song. Of course, it's about the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille, and of course the holiday that eventually became of it. I think I'm Going Bald is a pretty cool song. It was kind of inspired by Going Blind from Kiss. I think they were kind of making fun of the concept, maybe. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but it was written for Kim Mitchell from Max Webster. Is that right?
Well, I think I'm going bald.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Actually, I have the exact quote as to what that was written for. I think I'm Going Bald is referenced exactly to Alex Lifeson, who Geddy Lee says that he was obsessed with his hairline during the early days and would constantly look in the mirror and try to make sure that he wasn't balding and wanted to make sure that his hairline looked perfect every time he went out. So they got so fixed on him doing this and thought it was so hilarious that he was doing this that they actually wrote the song about it.
That's like BC. We're getting ready to record here. He's looking in the mirror. It's like, I can't record if my hair's not right.
Lakeside Park's a really nice, sweet song. You could tell that it's a place that means a lot to Neil. It has that love kind of put into the song. Necromancer has a Return to Bytor in it, in the Return of the Prince part of the movement, and any part of Bytor, I'm all for. And the Fountain of Lambeth, I think what they do in that song, they do it better with like the 2112. I think they do it a little better later on in their career. I do think it's another cool stepping stone. Like all these albums are just like a stepping stone to the ultimate realization. In that sense, I think it's a cool song, and there are some really awesome parts in it. The drum solo, especially, is very cool. But I think they perfect the formula next album.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying to you guys earlier about how when I was reviewing these records on my own YouTube channel that they have this pattern throughout their whole career. idea, realization, idea, realization. It's worked all the way through. I mean, you can go as far down their catalog as like Power Windows, idea, hold your fire, realization, the signals, idea, race under pressure, you know what I mean? Like you can trace it back all the way back to those records. And I mean, I agree with you 100%. The Fountain of Lamneth was a great idea, but it's loose in spots. It isn't. I find that the music isn't as interesting, story-wise, in it as 2112 is, right? And it doesn't connect as well because of that. So I think you're right.
I think you could even phrase it within 2112 as a discovery presentation. Presentation.
Exactly. And I think it also helps too that, I don't know how many of you guys own the 2112 Deluxe Edition on CD, DVD. The DVD version of it, when you put the album on, it has a running cartoon of the whole story played out on your TV while you listen to it.
Well,
so you can see the whole story, and it makes total sense when you watch the cartoon of it.
Oh, that's
See, that's what I
That's
need.
2112.
Well, I still don't understand that one either.
Maybe they'll go back and do one for Christmas.
2112, I think, is a lot easier to understand because there is a lot of.
But it's funny now
spelled
that
out for you.
if I read my notes before I listened to it, there's the story.
Yeah. And before, like, I won't get into 2112 right now, but there are parts of it that, like, you could really know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. For me, Caress of Steel, I like it. Like I said, here's they're in full swing going into delving into the prog rock area there. Bastille Day, it's a great opening riff. It's a great song. I don't think the solo is great in this song though. I like the end. The music at the end is kind of like reflective type music. I think for the rest of the song, I think I'm Going Bald. I think that belongs on the first album.
Well,
truthfully, I really do. I don't think it's a fun song. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's probably the throwaway song on here. The second part of the solo is really good in that. Lakeside Park, kind of mellow, but definitely a 70s type song. The solo's okay in it. But there were reviews, and Mark, you know the book I'm talking about, the Martin Popoff book, where Rush album by album. They said in there that a lot of people felt that Neil Peart overplayed on Lakeside Park. And I've listened to that song several times, and I don't see that at all. I don't know where that came from. There's a couple different fills here and there, but I don't know where they come up with that.
I don't agree at all. I think whoever said that was out of their minds completely because he plays exactly what the song needs. I mean, How much more basic do you want him to play? I mean, he's keeping a steady beat throughout it and just throwing in a fill here and there.
Right, there's no crazy
he's not
fills
doing
or
anything crazy.
Yeah. So I don't like I knew you would know what I was talking about reading that book, but it's a good song. Definitely not overplaying. The Necromancer, totally atmospheric, full on prog. I think it's my favorite song on here. I think I would say. I love the longer stuff, the epic songs. That takes me. You got Rush, like Maiden doing stuff like that. I absolutely love the longer songs. The soloing is great in it. The bass sounds amazing. The drums are kick-ass. The weird voice. It's got ripping solos in it. Bytor returns, and I think it's great. I think it's a great song. It does. I think it does take you on a good journey there, and there's a lot of good rock and music in there. The spoken word thing I could live without, but it goes quick. It's not like a prominent part in the song. The Fountain of Lamneth starts out a little slow acoustic, but it's got a really crunchy guitar sound once it gets going. BB mentioned he's got that, or I think BC mentioned got that drum solo in there, really cool. But I think Geddy Lee really pushes. Out of any songs up to this point, I think he really pushes himself vocally on this song more than anything else on any of the other albums. Like right around the 9-minute mark, and here I am, like my how I usually do timing stuff. Like right around the 9-mark minute, there's a really soulful guitar solo that sounds fantastic on there. Fountain of Lamneth, it's good, but it's not great. I will take Necromancer over that any day. Good album. I'm like BC. I thought it was good, and I went into the album with reading about it before I actually listened to it, and I was like, oh, this is going to suck. And I was pleasantly surprised. It's a great sounding album, I think, and I think it's good. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it's interesting to note too that Lakeside Park, the song, it was actually a minor FM hit for them in Canada here. So it wasn't a total flop in that sense, but I mean, you got to remember too, you're talking about a band who before, on their record beforehand, had a gold record from Fly By Night. They also won a Juno. They also were playing, with bigger venues than they were playing beforehand. So the record company and management were seeing a up climb. And when a band on its third record kind of plateaus and starts dropping down a bit, it's a little bit of a cause for concern, obviously.
Yeah, they were definitely concerned about that because we'll actually transition right into 2112. Because when they were going to record that, the record company was on them like, hey, we want a record with singles and radio-friendly songs and everything like that. And they were kind of the mind of, you know what, fuck that. We're going to do stuff our way. And, record company be damned. We're just going to put this out there and, hopefully it sticks to the wall. If it doesn't, if we're going down, we're going to go down doing what we wanted to do.
Actually, the funny thing with that, though, is that that's very much what the band was thinking and saying. But the smart thing about this was that Terry Brown and Ray Daniels, who was Rush's manager, they went into the meeting with Mercury Records head Cliff Bernstein, and he told them, yeah, man, don't worry, we're going to do singles, it's going to be awesome, we're not doing any more long songs. He totally bullshitted the record label and told them that they were going to do what they wanted, because at that point they weren't advanced the money yet for the making of the record, right? So until they got the green light from the record label, they couldn't even start making this record. So they pretty much had to bullshit them, tell them, yeah, it's going to happen. They got the money, and then they said, you know what, screw it. We're just going to do what we want, and if we get dropped, we get dropped.
Yeah, and this was another album that was recorded fairly quickly. It is recorded just in February 1976 and released 2 months later in April. So, I mean, here's another quick turnaround for these guys. They wanted these guys to produce and, get in there, be a hit machine, get shit going. And, Mark, take us away on this one.
Well, this, again, is one of those records where it is the realization of the idea. They wanted to make a record with a sidelong piece that was very well received, and it was. I mean, this 2112 is one of those songs where the first 10 seconds that you hear that synthesizer beginning, everybody on this planet probably knows what song this is. It's really reached the mass listening market for sure. It's such a great song, and interestingly enough, it also has the very first appearance of a guest musician on a Rush record, where they had Hugh Syme, who actually does the synthesizer for 2112, and he also plays the mellotron on Tears, which is on side 2. So that's the first time they actually had somebody come in and do, guest musician work on their record. Again, this album is a little side-long piece on side 1, which is fantastic. But side 2, unlike some of their past records, like you guys said that Fly By Night, you thought side B was weaker, and some of you guys didn't like side B with the Fountain of Lamneth, but side 2 on this record I think is really strong. I mean, Passage to Bangkok is one of their better single individual songs that they've written. I really like Twilight Zone as well. I think it's a very underrated song, written about the television show, actually, surprisingly enough. And Something for Nothing, which is the ending piece of this album, I think is one of the also sort of underrated classic songs of all time on this album. And it's also interesting because this album has an example of a piece written by Alex Lifeson lyrically, and a piece written lyrically by Geddy Lee. So Lessons is written by Alex Lifeson, and Tears is written by Geddy Lee. So the rest of it is, of course, Neil Peart writing the lyrics. So this is one of those odd times where that happens.
Good start. BB, what do you got for 2112?
I had to listen to it a couple times, and what I really got me was the part of the discovery. It was about. Was that the song about the guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he found the guitar and tuned
Right,
it.
like that I could now that I understood in that, but that I really enjoyed that part, and the same as Mark, Something for Nothing. I thought that was like the hidden gem of the album, and Tears and Lessons I didn't like too much, but Passage for Bangkok I thought was funny after I listened to it and read what it was about. Once again, now they're talking about all the cities that produce very well-grown marijuana. So if you have some time, go back and put that in your mindset when you listen to it. And it's almost like another funny, I think I'm going bald song. But other than that, great album. Great album.
Okay, 2112, of course, side one. I like it all. I mean, it's very, like you said, they're full blown. Passions of Bangkok, another good song, and I like the dee 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 dee.
Yeah.
That just cracks me up for some reason. It reminds me of something I can't pinpoint it, like a TV
It's like the
show.
old Charlie Chan
Is that what it is?
things, I think.
And then, like Twilight Zone, Lessons and Tears kind of lost me a little bit. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just not in the right. And I love Something for Nothing. The drums and guitar and that just.
The thing I love about the song 2112 is that it has something for everybody in it. You have just like the really proggy beginning of overture with like the like weird timing on like the hits on the drums and the riff. Like you're just like you have to listen to it a couple times to get it down, like what they're doing. But it also has like a straightforward rocking part. I love the story they're telling in terms of like, you know, this man, like music is kind of gone the way of the dodo, and this man finds this guitar and he brings it to these priests, and they're like, no, that's not good. And then there's a big battle at the end where, like, and I still get chills every time I hear "Attention, all planets of the Solar Federation, we have assumed control." Like, I'm like, oh god, that's like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Like, what's happening? And it's like, I know that Neil called it a Hitchcockian killer of an ending, and I think that's a pretty good description of it. There's a little bit of like the 1812 overture that Alex plays, like the guitar, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And also, this song gave me one of my favorite concert moments of all time. They were playing the overture and the and like the whole crowd knew to do the hey.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got chills when everybody did it at the same time because they were all such huge fans of Rush that they know that's when you do the hey without any prompting from the band. And the rest of the album is amazing too. Passes to Bangkok, everybody said is amazing. The Twilight Zone, I was listening with my headphones, and they do a really cool thing with Geddy's voice during the chorus where they kind of pan it back, put it back in the mix, and it like goes towards the back of your headphones, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. It's giving me chills down my spine that they're moving his voice around, and when it's done, I love when it's done effectively like that. I really like Lessons. I think that's like a really different, cool song for Rush. Tears is probably the one song I could do without. It's a little slower. It kind of takes away from the rest of the album. But then Something for Nothing is a classic as well. So this, I think, is front to back just a stellar Rush album. I would give this album to anybody to listen to. Maybe not like show them track timing, or get a version that like the individual parts of 2112 are broken down into. But I just think it's an amazing album.
Yeah, and I have to say too that from a production point of view, I think Terry Brown really did a great job with the sound of this record. The drums on this record are one of my favorite sounding drums that Rush has on record. They're really punchy and powerful sounding. And, you know, the interesting thing too with Twilight Zone, for example, I mean, you were talking about how they put the voice in the back. What another interesting trick that they did too was that Geddy does this part where he does "You have entered the Twilight Zone," and he sings it really like almost whisperingly like.
Yeah.
And they put it in just loud enough that you hear it, so that if you have headphones on, you're like, what the hell is he saying there? You kind of almost have to focus on it, right? And it's one of those production tricks that are really good. One thing I would highly recommend that there's a really great DVD out that has the which is the classic album making of 2112 and Moving Pictures, and they go through all these kind of different tricks and production stuff. They sit down with Terry Brown and with Geddy and Alex, and they go back to the studio and pull up the multi-track tape and go through stuff from the record. So if you're interested in, getting a little bit more detail of the making of this record and Moving Pictures, I would suggest picking that up.
I remember watching that a while back. I always loved watching the classic albums, like making ofs. There was
I love them.
Yeah, I love. I've said it many times that I love studio stuff, like watching bands create what they create. And like last year, around this time, I got to go in the studio with Hit and Run. Mark Satorka took me down, and we had Johnny D. I went through the whole story before, but I just love the
process.
The process. I love there you go, Mark. The process. And one of these days, I'm gonna drive the Canon when Mark's recording, and I'm gonna set up, and I'm gonna be looking in the windows when Mark's recording his next Project Gemini album. I know. But I didn't want to go there because I would have to put my 2 cents in, and everyone wouldn't like it. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, back to 2112 for me. I like it. I think it's great. If you take Fountain of Lamnith and 2112. The last song on the one album, the first song on the next album, you got like over 40 minutes of music for 2 songs, like in a row, if you take them chronologically, which is like insane. But Mark, you're absolutely right. I think they had the blueprint, and they realized it on the next album. I love that beginning part, and you're right. Everyone knows that. That is like, oh, here's 2112. And I like the guitar echo, that down out. You get that echo there. That sounds really cool. The Temples of Syrinx, really cool. I just love the pace of the vocals that go along with the. It's kind of like a galloping riff when he's singing these parts, kind of like an Iron Maiden song. You get that galloping feel to it. And Discovery, when he finds a guitar in the wonderment of it, and he's going to be like. They're going to praise him because he found this artifact and it's going to change the world and everything like that. And then, he in the presentation, he gives it up to when they shoot him down. And he's like, what the fuck kind of thing. And so then he goes home, he falls asleep, he has a dream where, everything else takes place. But, Mark, can you answer this for me? At the end, it's like the blood flows. Does he, kill himself, this guy?
Yeah. Yeah, that whole... A line at the end there, I'm trying to remember offhand what he says there.
It's like the blood flows, or
Jesus, I'm trying to remember what.
I forget exactly how it goes, but that's what I got from him. But he's like, "Fuck this! They don't want to, do this thing that could change the world." And they knew about it all along, apparently. And it's just a really cool story. And the grand finale, like Dylan said, the attention all planets, the Solar Federation part has assumed control, and you don't know if that's good or bad. Yeah. You don't know if it's like redemption for this guy that found the thing, or if it's the priests from the temples taking everything over again. You just don't know. And I think it ends on a really cool thing. I have written down, we have assumed control, and I have ... but who in a question mark. which was kind of like, it's a crazy ending. Side 2, Passage to Bangkok. I'm with the BC like that. And they do it at the end too. It's twice in the song. It's their journey to get high. It's crazy. It's a cool song though. It's got a good melody to it. The Twilight Zone, it's obviously about the TV show. It's got that little sinister riff in there that you think is going to go longer, but then it just stops.
Is that right at the end?
No, it's like as soon as he starts, when he sings, you get that down, that it's a little dark part. Right. It's just like it's like a couple notes.
I thought that song
and it sounds a little sinister. But it's cool though. The second verse is really cool. There's not much of a solo in that song, I don't think, from what I remember. Lessons, that's either a song of Alex talking to his parents or to the record company. I can't figure out which one. But the solo's pretty good in that one. Tears, I'm not a fan of it. Way too mellow for me. And you can tell it's not a Neil Peart written song either. Something for Nothing has got great drum fills. The guitar sound is great in it, and the solo in it is really great. I think it's overall a great album, and it's a good finale to their first part of their career. You could see little seedlings of what this album is on each album coming up. And it comes to full fruition on this album, and I think it's just great. And I think it's kind of genius that they put 2112 on side 1 rather than on side 2. I think that was a great calculation. I'm sure they probably wanted it that way. I think it would be less interesting of an album if it was reversed.
I think it's a big fucking record company.
Yeah, and you know what? I gotta ask you guys something though. You guys who are saying that you're not really certain about the story of this, do you guys own the album at all?
Yeah.
Because inside the album on the lyrics, there's a running story above the lyrics. Like for Soliloquy, that part there, it says right here, and I quote, "I have not left this cave for days now. It has become my last refuge in my total despair. I have only the music of the waterfall to comfort me now. I can no longer live under the control of the Federation, but there is no other place to go. My last hope is that with my death, I may pass into the world of my dream and know peace at last." And those lyrics that you were thinking of are, "My spirits are low in the depths of despair. My lifeblood spills over." And you know what's funny about that? That line, the "my spirits are low in the depths of despair," also appears in another thing. I'm not sure how much you guys in America know this show, but there's a Canadian show called Anne of Green Gables. It's like a story about some like orphan kid in Newfoundland or in the Maritimes. And that was one of her known lines that she used to always say is, "My spirits are low in the depths of despair." Now, I don't know if he took that from that show or that kind of a story, but it's interesting that they are both in a Rush song and in a Canadian Rush television, or a Canadian television show, like based on a novel.
Well, speaking of the story, I remember I was a huge Guitar Hero fan back in the day, and in Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, the whole song is actually in that game, and the members of Rush narrate like the story behind it as you're playing through the song. So
nice.
It was a really cool experience. I remember it really well. I'm like, oh, and I just remembered it now, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. And they did special narration for the game itself. So if you're still confused, BB, pick up Warriors of Rock and play through.
We haven't had a Guitar Hero night in
In a
years.
long time, right?
Yeah.
Let's plug it back in.
Very cool, you guys out there. There's the first 4 Rush albums for you. Let's go around the table. Give us your overall thoughts on all the albums we did tonight. BB, start us off.
This was a great episode for me because I had to do a lot of listening because I listened to each album a couple times because I've never listened to these 4 albums front to back. So I really dove in the deep end, and they impressed me. You can tell how they progressed as a band and where they started, and how their lyrics and storytelling kind of changed with each album. I really like these 4 albums, and now I'm excited that we're going to keep going with this series, and it really sets the tone for down the road, and I can't wait.
Now, how would you rank the albums?
I think I would go Fly By Night as my favorite. Then I would go Rush. Then I go Chorus of Steel, and then 2112.
Okay.
Wow, really?
That's an interesting order. I like that.
That is. BC, what's your thoughts here?
Like my counterpart to my left here, this is my first time listening to the 4 of them from everything, not just the hits or whatever. But I was very surprised that the first 2, and I don't mean pleasantly surprised. I was a little nervous. I would have like very beginnings of it, but I very liked them. And then Chorus of Steel I liked, and like I said, 2112 is I like parts of it, but not what I expected.
So how would you rank it?
Oh my god, I'm gonna go with BB.
Yeah.
Same exact order. Okay.
Right. Mark, how about you?
Well,
The first two.
as far as my overall impression, I love this stuff. This to me is like the early days, obviously, of the band, and to me, I always found this time period interesting because they had such a interesting start in their career. Like they kind of got off to a really good start, and then kind of hit an obstacle early in their career. I found, which I thought was interesting to see how they kind of were as a band. Would they unite and stick together? And it showed that they were very tight as people and as friends to move forward through that tough battle. And as far as my favorite records and how, like, the order of these four, my favorite record is Fly By Night. My next pick would have to be, though, 2112, and then it would have to be Crest of Steel, and then the first album last.
Rush to me is a band that keeps on giving. You can listen to their albums front to back many times, and each time you'll find something new that you haven't really focused on. And I found that with like the first Rush album with Here Again, and I found some parts of the 2112 suite, as I'll call it, that really pricked my ear this time around as opposed to the other listens. I love Rush. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. And the cool thing is they have such different eras in their catalog. Like they have their prog era. They have their, going more towards almost synth pop-ish type stuff. They have just straight rock. They have their concept albums. They really do it all. And if you don't like one Rush album, there's a chance that you'll like the millions of other ones that are out there at some point. If I had to rank the ones that are going to be here that we covered today, it has to be 2112, number one. Absolutely love that album. I'm going to go the first Rush album, followed very closely by Fly By Night, and then Crest of Steel's back a little bit. But I love all these albums. Crest of Steel a little less than the other ones, but I do love these albums.
I really enjoyed doing the research for this episode. I have listened to these albums all the way through at one time or another, but it's been a while. It's been a while. I've never done it before. Listened to them in succession. I put them on a playlist, and it's amazing to just hear the progression of this band as they go from just like a straight out rock band to getting a little bit proggy with hard rock stuff, and then it's just the progression of this band. But you still have the main elements of this band as you go through. They don't lose that hard rockiness to their stuff. It's just you have stuff added on there that makes it more interesting. And story wise, it's not they're not a party band. They're not they're pretty much thematically polar opposite of Kiss, and their careers kind of parallel each other, and actually I think all the way through their careers. But you could see the difference in these bands. It's Rush, they're a little, they're more sophisticated in their lyrics as they went along. They start out with the good time songs and stuff like that. And like I said, when you go back and you hear Geddy Lee singing "Hey Baby," it's like you're so not used to hearing that again. And I think it's just great. In my order, it's tough for me to pick an order of how I like these albums. I'm going to probably go 2112, Fly By Night, and I'm going to put the first one in Caress of Steel probably in a tie. Maybe the first one a little bit ahead of that because Fountains of Lamneth, it's a little below, I think, that. But I think it was just overall great. And, people may say I hate Rush, but you could certainly never say Rush suck. People may not like their music or, get them or some of the sophistication that's in their lyrics and stuff like that. But you could never, ever put these guys down musically. They have never, they've changed. They've done, rock, and they've done synth rock, and they've done pop stuff in the 80s when everyone else was doing that change also. But you could certainly never say that they had a bad album musically, and I think they're great. I had a great time, listening to the stuff for this episode. It was a really good time. We'll I'm going to leave it at that for Rush. You guys get out there, listen to this older stuff, and listen to it in order. Listen to the first one, then Fly By Night, Caress of Steel, and 2112. You could hear the progression as this band moves along. It's a great journey, and we're definitely going to continue this as a series as we go. We're going to bring Mark back, and we'll move along with Rush's career as we go along on the podcast here. And let's go around the table. We'll say our goodbyes, and we'll wrap it up. BC.
Hey, another good episode, and turning myself onto some new things I never heard before. And thank you, Mark, for coming on and just that vast knowledge of Rush. It's awesome. I love it.
You're welcome, guys.
To quote the words of Alex Lifeson, blah, 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 blah. No, but Rush is amazing. Listen to them if you haven't checked them out too much. They have a lot of really great stuff. And Mark, thanks for coming on. We are going to call you our Rush expert, I think. So we appreciated it.
Absolutely. Mark.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed this. Like I said before, I'm willing to come on for the whole series to do this. I really enjoyed it. With Rush being my favorite band. Sometimes I felt like I was over talking too much, so I hope I didn't
Not at all.
talk too much there. But I really enjoyed it, and I look very forward to doing this again with you guys. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Give your podcast and our Project Gemini a plug before we get going here.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in what I do musically, I have a band called Project Gemini, and if you go on Facebook, you can find the Project Gemini Facebook group on there, and there's also a separate page. If you want to do something a bit more simpler, just simply go to www.projectgemini. That's PROJEKT, and Gemini spelled GEMINEYE, like your eye.com, and there's that website right there, which has a lot of the information as well. And I also do the KISS FAQ podcast every week with Julian Gill and Ken Keenan and Lonnie Weisheimer, who's usually, we're the usual four that's on that show. And I also do the KISS, the Yes Music podcast as well. And that's a really interesting podcast if you're into progressive rock, especially it's all Yes based. And everything to do with Yes, whether it's Yes albums or Yes solo albums from the members within the band.
BB.
Yeah, like everybody said, Mark, thank you for coming on, and good luck with your new album release. This is, once again, and I got to put this on a shirt. Like, this old music to me has turned into new music, and it perked my interest. And like I said before, I'm really excited to get back into the next 4 albums. I may do a little early homework to make sure I'm a little extra prepared, and just a great album. And I love doing this because I would have never listened to these 4 albums.
First of all, I want to thank Mark for coming on here. And Mark, you mentioned before you thought you may have talked too much, and I could not disagree more. I actually have a note that I wrote here when I forget. I might have been we were talking about Fly By Night, and you were talking about. I wrote on the note. This is why I wanted Mark on the show, and because. We're pretty much babes in the woods as far as Rush is concerned, and we wanted to.
I don't know if I'd call myself a babe in the wood, but Mark definitely knows more than I do.
I wanted something to that effect. I just wanted.
I know about Rush, damn it.
You could be a bear in the woods.
Because I know Mark's been, I know they're his favorite band, so I definitely wanted to have Mark on there. And we will put a link up for Project Gemini on our page when we put this out. And you guys, check us out. Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Castbox, pretty much almost every place that you can find a podcast we're on. We do a Spotify playlist every week of the songs and the topics that we do, so check that out. Dylan's doing a great job with the playlists. They're really good. And you guys check out Project Gemini. Mark's albums, they're all, he plays everything, he produces it, writes all the songs. Definitely an amazing musical journey with Mark. And it's like a progressive, like hard rock metal type albums, and they're just fantastic. There's something I think for everybody on those albums, and he's got his latest one coming out very soon. Definitely check that out. Go back, check the old ones out. You can find them on Bandcamp, and you can. I'm not sure if they're still available for them to buy from Mark. But you can contact him on his Facebook page or his webpage. And I want to thank everybody out there for listening. We have a great time doing this show. We hope you guys, check out some of the stuff that we talk about if you have not maybe checked them out before, or if you haven't listened to it in a while. It may spark a little interest and go back and check out this stuff. And we love doing it. We love having you guys on here. And I want to thank my co-hosts for coming on and putting up with me all the time. And everybody have a great week out there. We will see you next time, and there definitely will be a next time.